Hello and welcome to Pod 199 of the 4Bs. Bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit. Today or tonight, I'm alone. Nobody's shown up. I should be joined by at least one person, at least one. But they have failed to arrive, and I can't bother waiting anymore. And we've not done one for 3 weeks. Bitcoin's in the toilet. We're getting accused of not doing pods because the price is down. We've got to do one. So I'm here. Hello, high water. Let's just let's just run through some stories. Who knows how this is going to be? Normally it's just me ranting away anyway, whilst the others just kind of wait for their spot to put in their 2p. So hey, you don't get any 2ps today. You just get Bitcoin. So first story of the day is hopefully a bit of an encouraging one. So we know the price is down. We know it is. This is the chart. We've We've seen a lot of red in 2026. It hasn't been fun. However, what does this mean? It means that over 50% of the total supply is at a loss. It basically means that people that owned that Bitcoin brought it at a price that is higher than it is today. Over 50% of people are down on their Bitcoin. And this has happened 3 times before. And the last 3 times this has happened, it has marked the bottom of a bear market, and we've had a lot of green afterwards. So hopefully, if this chart holds true, which, as we know, I love charts. I don't love charts, but it's a glimmer of hope, right? It's a glimmer of hope for the short term. Who knows? We know long term we're all good. Bitcoin versus fiat, still going to win every day of the week, but where is Bitcoin in its price kind of discovery journey? It looks like a lot of people, over half the people that have bought Bitcoin right now, are underwater. I did see I saw a horrible screenshot actually on X today um, that basically showed the Bitcoin price 5 years ago compared to today, and it's down. So I can't remember a time where if you bought Bitcoin and held it for 5 years, you weren't up and significantly up. But that's happened. And that's why I don't like charts. I don't like models. I don't like graphs, just because they're great when you go backwards and project and put up your theory on top of a graph that's already happened. Like, fine, you can find patterns all day long, but does that pattern continue? And so often it doesn't. And that 5 years of you can guarantee you would be up on your Bitcoin if you held for 5 years was true for as long as it until it wasn't. And it looks like this is the year that it wasn't. So take that first chart as you like. Next up we have a perma bear. Goes on CNBC, and fair play to CNBC and one of our favorite guys probably on the pod. Forget his name now, but he's been defending Bitcoin for a while. So I'll just let this clip play, and we can see what this absolute fountain of knowledge that is in the middle, what he has to say.
And the way that Bitcoin is structured,
Fine.
there are people
So
that
what-
would argue with you that it has a hard asset.
That some people have made a lot of money like a chain letter. What does crypto do?
I don't understand the question. What
What
does
is the use of crypto? It pays no dividend. It doesn't represent an asset you can put your fingers on. There is nothing there. It is just an idea that it will go up in price. If you trust me, it will go up
on an island, when shells were used to represent an hour of work, that you got 100 people, each one.
Comparison. This is completely faith-based.
No, it represents proof of work. It represents proof of work. You're going to be totally wrong on Bitcoin too. You're going to be wrong on everything you've
Proof of unnecessary work shouldn't be worth a bucket of warm spit, and it will not be.
All right. It's only been 20 years so far, so someday you might be right about this.
Well, look, Warren Buffett's in the same camp.
No, I know. Yes, so is Charlie Munger. But you want me to list 10 people that aren't in that camp that are?
I'm just suggesting that there's a lot of smart people who also have that view.
A lot of smart people who have a different view.
The point is, it hasn't outlived a general bull market. We've been in a bull market since March of 09.
Right.
And when we get into a bear market, which Joe may think we never will be again, a serious bear market of down 50, 60, 70, do we think it will prosper
A lot
in
of
that
people,
environment?
anybody that listened to you from 2010 you've done a grave disservice to them.
So there's the clip. This is a guy who basically just is a perma bear on the stock market, on everything. And to be fair, I actually think some of his analysis probably on why we're expected to crash is relatively accurate. You know, the fact that, you know, he's probably not a million miles away from being a Bitcoiner. You know, he can see that the stock market's inflated. He can see that they're printing money out of thin air. But he just obviously hasn't made that leap. And he thinks, you know, and you know, even by the way he describes Bitcoin, right? He won't say the word Bitcoin. He just says crypto. And the second someone says that, you go, well, technically, I agree with you. If you're saying crypto and you're saying it's, you know, not worth anything, I agree. But Bitcoin is a completely different animal. And the fact that he dismissed the shells analogy also just exposes the fact that he doesn't know his history of money. And to say, oh yeah, Bitcoin's just like shells, then bizarrely actually really validates Bitcoin. And he says, oh, it's faith-based. And you go, okay, well, what is fiat then? What is fiat backed by? What is government money backed by? And I guess you could say an army, you know, a military, but really it's faith. The reason why people accept pounds and dollars and in euros is because we believe that they are worth something, and we work and we toil away for 8 hours a day, and someone gives us some of that fiat into a bank account or into our hand, and we then take that and we can buy goods and services. That works until it doesn't. It is faith-based, and we have seen currencies fall. They work for years, for decades, and then one day someone goes, you know what, I don't want to accept this form of payment anymore. And then before you know it, it spreads everywhere. Nobody wants that form of payment anymore. The currency hyperinflates and it's over. And they pivot to something else. So it's always nice to see a little bear slicing Bitcoin that clearly has next to zero knowledge of Bitcoin. So let's move on to someone that has a lot of knowledge of Bitcoin. The previous known Giga Chad, or now known as the Giga Cuck, Michael Saylor. And he has been selling Bitcoin. The guy that said he would never sell his Bitcoin has been selling Bitcoin. So let's just hear him. He's just sold some Bitcoin, right? And he's at Bitcoin Prague. And he gets asked the question, why have you sold some Bitcoin?
And I refused to do it because a troll on Twitter said, hey, you said never sell your Bitcoin. Okay, fine, I'll destroy $100 billion company so that I don't sell my Bitcoin. You know, well, the point is, I said to you, never sell your Bitcoin. I never said that the company wouldn't sell his Bitcoin. And anybody that's been listening to our earnings calls or reading our disclosures or has half a brain knows for the last 5 years, we've been very clear that, of course, we sell the Bitcoin.
So there we have it. He never said it. According to Saylor himself, he never said that he wouldn't sell Bitcoin. He was telling us we shouldn't. Do as I say, not as I do. Now, unfortunately for Saylor, and as you would expect, he has done probably hundreds of hours of podcasts, dozens of hours of presentations, all about Bitcoin. There's got to be a clip in there, right? That has him saying he'll never sell his Bitcoin. Oh, it'd be really embarrassing if that clip existed. Really embarrassing.
And I promise not to sell the Bitcoin. And so we're in the business of not selling Bitcoin. By the way, I said to you, never sell your Bitcoin. I never said that the company wouldn't sell his Bitcoin. And I promise not to sell the Bitcoin. I never said that the company wouldn't sell the Bitcoin. And I promise not to sell the Bitcoin. I never said that the company wouldn't sell the Bitcoin. And I promise not to sell the Bitcoin.
So there we go. As if we even really needed it. He clearly said it. He said it multiple times. But what I really don't like about this is obviously we've turned on Saylor a while ago when he started dissing and he seems to hate like the real Bitcoiners. And by real, I mean the people that understand Bitcoin, know it's a decentralized protocol, separating money from state, you take self-custody, you don't trust the financial system. Right, which is why Saylor's whole grift from the beginning was always put your money into the financial system. And don't worry, you're kind of putting it into Bitcoin because MicroStrategy is basically a Bitcoin company. So and look, and even I got sold on it to a certain extent, which was, well, if I do have money tied up in the finance world, i.e. a pension that you can't take out until you're a certain age, it may make sense to shove that bit of money backing MicroStrategy, which would have probably worked out pretty well. But why would I put anything else in? It makes no sense to put real life money into a fiat vehicle that backs Bitcoin that may or may not outperform it. Basically, just adding a layer of risk on top of Bitcoin, which already has all those risks, but you're adding an additional risk by putting it into MicroStrategy, which is, well, this company could fail. They could mess up. Obviously, there's a million things that can happen in Bitcoin. It could get attacked. It could have its supply increased. It could not be decentralized anymore. It could get a fatal bug. Those risks exist every single day, which is why we don't want to change the code. But you don't lose those risks by putting your money into MicroStrategy, because if Bitcoin blows up and the Bitcoin's not worth anything anymore, then MicroStrategy is not worth anything anymore, because they are pretty much worth, well, less than 1-to-1 their Bitcoin, as we'll get on to very soon. So what I didn't like is the fact that he's saying, oh, I'm not going to justify why I sold some Bitcoin because of some troll on Twitter. We're not trolls. We're Bitcoiners asking a legitimate question based on somebody going back on something they have said previously. So be a man, be accountable, and answer the fucking question. And just lying and saying, I never said it, when that exact statement has come out of his mouth dozens, if not hundreds of times on various podcasts and talks, well, you lose all credibility, right? It's done. You just can't trust the word that comes out of this guy's mouth now. If he's going to literally say something one day and then just go, I didn't say it the next. You can't work with someone like that. And on the same subject of MicroStrategy, we've touched on their little stretch product a few times, and essentially it's in the toilet. The whole point of stretch is that it obviously pays a dividend, but it needs to be pegged to $100. Now, the last I checked, it was at 86 and dropping fast. And there's a tweet from Michael Saylor here: volatility tests every capital structure. Strategy remains focused on Bitcoin, disciplined capital allocation, credit quality, long-term value creation. We appreciate our investors and will continue to execute with transparency and resolve. And someone called this for exactly what this sounds like. It sounds like SPF of the FTX fame. A competitor is trying to go after us with false rumors. FTX is fine, assets are fine. And this guy's basically going, it's the same vibes. What's that final thing that people say just before their company goes pop? They say everything's fine and we love our investors. And they just say that what people are saying is just untrue. And the problem is it is true. Bitcoin is underperforming MicroStrategy's prediction. They've created a product on top of their MicroStrategy shares called Stretch, which is wholly dependent on Bitcoin going up in value because it pays a 11 or 12% dividend a year that is paid monthly. I think they were even trying to get it to pay weekly. So for them to have that 11%, Bitcoin has to go up in price. And at the moment, the last I checked, Strategy was about 14 billion in the red on their Bitcoin buys, which is hilarious because Michael Saylor has been buying since about 20K Bitcoin, but he was only buying small amounts then. So he only started buying huge amounts kind of at the top where he's buying billions at a time. So if he DCA'd properly and really believed and had conviction in Bitcoin when he first came in, then he wouldn't be down because he would have bought a load of Bitcoin from 20K all the way up to 69, and then we've gone from, or actually up to 120, and then from 120 back down to whatever it is in dollars, like 60K or something. So he'd probably be a couple of billion up, maybe 10 billion up, who knows, if he'd have DCA'd an equal amount month by month. But he didn't. He was putting in piddly amounts, 5 million here, 20 million there. I say piddly amounts, it's piddly amounts for a billionaire. And so somehow he's down. And therefore he can't pay his dividend. But the thing is, he is paying his dividend because he needs the asset and the product that is stretched to keep going. And what he's been forced into a corner to do is to go, what means more to you? Your $100 billion company or Bitcoin? And he always told us he would never sell that Bitcoin. He would rather the company go bust than sell any. At the first sign of trouble, he's selling Bitcoin to save his company. So it's not if, it's just when now. They're going to sell the rest of it because that stretch product's going to go pop. He's going to lose all credibility. The market will turn on him. I can guarantee there's a very, very strong crossover of stretch owners and MicroStrategy owners. So if he wrecks the stretch owners, they will sell the MicroStrategy as well. And before you know it, MicroStrategy will be worth 10% of the Bitcoin that it owns on its own books, which is just kind of some weird kind of twist of fate. But in reality, I actually would say that's probably about its fair value. For me to invest in a company that holds Bitcoin, for me to forego self-custody, I think I do need a 10x on my money straight away. Yeah, for every £100 I put in, I want them to have £1,000 of Bitcoin in there. It almost seems like a fair trade. If it's just 1-to-1, then I might as well just buy the Bitcoin myself and not have the extra risk. So we will see how that plays out. My prediction is that in the next 12 to 24 months, I don't think MicroStrategy will be around. And Michael Saylor would have fully turned on Bitcoiners. And he'll say he's left because of the trolls, and it's nothing to do with us. We're just pointing out the fact that he's running a Ponzi scheme at this point. And he needs to stop, and he needs to stop lying. He needs to stop telling people to not self-custody their Bitcoin. He needs to stop saying that he don't say Bitcoin. He fucking did. He did it multiple times. Anyway, more positive story. We have El Salvador back on the books. And El Salvador are just doing their best to compete in this crazy world. And as always, a great way to compete when we're in fiat land is on taxes. And so they're now saying that for Bitcoiners, or I hate the fact that they say crypto in here. Is this their official account? Oh, no, it's not. Okay. It's just being translated onto this one. But yeah, 0% tax on foreign income, 0% on Bitcoin capital gains, and 0% tax on wealth or inheritances. And you also, to be a tax resident in El Salvador, you only need to spend 90 days a year now in El Salvador. So technically, what's that? 3 months. So you can spend 9 months of the year. Basically, 1/4 of the year has to be in El Salvador. The other 3/4 can be wherever you want. Obviously, the clause on all those is always that you can't just, say if you're in the UK or in America, you can't spend 9 months of the year there and 3 months of the year in El Salvador and just go, I'm an El Salvador citizen. Every country has its own rules on what makes you a citizen. And yeah, UK and America, I don't think you can spend more than 90 days here in the UK without becoming a citizen either. So you'd have to be kind of hopping around a little bit if you didn't want to be a tax citizen anywhere. But the safest place to be really is, if I was to take advantage of this, for example, I would be spending the majority of my time in El Salvador and coming back to the UK to visit, family and friends. But it's nice to know that if you did want to travel, you don't have to stay there. You could just move around. So who knows? As the taxes in the West get more and more onerous, these types of smaller countries, especially Bitcoin friendly ones, will mop up some people, I'm sure. Oh, this is one that I really needed the boys here for, because this is me kind of actually falling out with one of the plebs. Yeah, it's a bit cringe, really. I don't know if I need to do this, but yeah, go on then. I'll do it. So this is one of the plebs. This is just a stupid story, by the way. This has got no newsworthy relevance whatsoever. This is a guy called Bring Facts, just got paid again because, I'm jobless loser, according to some atheist queer nobody knows with flags in his bio. So okay, so clearly this guy's triggered and he's filmed himself counting some 20s. And that's literally, so all right, fine. So I just replied going, that's like $1,000 max by flexing you make yourself look super poor. That's your rent money. And he goes, yeah, it is my rent money because he's collecting $1,000. I'm actually quite pleased that I guessed it $1,000. It actually is because he has tenants and he owns several fucking houses, including my own. I'm a landlord. So would you like to assume anything else, dumbass? The only reason I posted this was to make another person look like you look just as stupid as you fucking look for talking stupid shit. I can't assume more. You got all the attention you're worth for me. Have a nice life, fuckhead. Now I'm not being funny. I always said just like that's $1,000. What you're doing, yeah. If you're trying to flex, like, at least make it hundreds. But yeah. And then obviously my opinion on rental properties compared to Bitcoin is well known. I don't like them. So sounds like you're in a lot of debt. Sell those homes, take the cash and buy Bitcoin. You fiat, try hard. You know what? At the end, I didn't need that little bit. I didn't need the last 4 words. I probably just triggered him even more by saying that. I should have been the bigger man and not insulted him. But here we go. Sounds like every time you open your mouth, you assume stupid shit. So maybe just shut the fuck up. Oh, who the fuck are you? You don't pay my goddamn bills. Shut the fuck up. Man, he's got the word cunt in there as well. Oh, he's a few times. Yeah, yeah. You could be Satoshi fucking Nakamoto, but I doubt it because you would have just shut the fuck up. This guy is, if he's not on medication, he probably should be. I insult him again. Your poor is really showing now. Relax, bro. Property rentals are a scam. Every Bitcoiner knows this. You could be taxed to oblivion at any moment, and property is illiquid as fuck. If you need to move it, just facts. Stop acting like an emotional child. Bro, you're just digging yourself a hole. I didn't fucking hire you as my financial planner, so maybe just stay in your lane, kid. I'm acting like a child. Again, who the fuck are you? I'm just a Bitcoiner that hates the buy-to-let fiat scam. Don't say you weren't warned. So, Jesus. So, obviously, I do love a little bit of toxic Bitcoin Twitter. I love getting into these conversations, and I needed Seneberg here because really this was just another gilded way of getting in that his rental property should be sold and he should convert it to Bitcoin. Because this is what this guy's supposedly doing. He's supposedly a Bitcoiner, supposedly all in on it. And then yeah, and I think I must have missed in his comments at some point he alludes to the fact that how much Bitcoin, I probably got more Bitcoin than you, and I've probably been here longer than you. So how dare you even talk to me? And that whole attitude is just so pathetic. Yeah, that reminds me of the fiat landscape where you have you have a discussion or debate with somebody about whatever topic it is, and they just go, well, hold on, how many degrees have you got? You go, what? What's that got to do with anything? Can you answer the point? You go, well, I've got 3 degrees and it's from Manchester, Harvard, and da. You're like, well, okay, but that's the classic, appealing to authority and going, basically, I'm better than you, so therefore I'm right. That isn't how the world works, and it's not how Bitcoiners work. We don't care how long you've been here for. We don't care how much Bitcoin you got. We talk about the points. Don't attack the man, attack the point. And distraction and misdirection is our fear games. Bitcoiners hold themselves to account. And if someone calls you a name or says you're poor or whatever, you just go, okay. If anything, like sometimes when people are like debating me like this and start asking me how much Bitcoin have you got, how long have you been here for, I almost assume it's the FBI or the tax man at the other end of this and go, hold on. And obviously you should never reveal this stuff anyway, especially online when you do not know who is watching. So it's little things like, even though he's only got $1,000 of cash there that he's trying to flex, it's still dumb. Someone might be able to figure out where he is and then knows well, that's the door to knock down or a window to smash because he's got $1,000 on his table tonight. I literally just saw him on Twitter counting it. So yeah, so we don't need any more Bitcoiners like that. The final story is actually a really, really good one and one that I highly recommend people watch. So the link will be in the description. You can also find this video on firstbitcoinminer.com. And it's a really, really good video. It's only 12 minutes long. And this is a guy that I don't really know who he was, but I found him because of this story, found him because of this video. It's very well produced, very well made. And he basically investigates the early days of Bitcoin, those first couple of blocks. And go on, I will ruin it. It's a bit of a spoiler. But basically the current version of events in Bitcoin land is that there was the cypherpunks mailing list where Satoshi reveals that he has created Bitcoin and kind of here it is. And he wants to start using it. And everyone thought that it was Hal Finney that was the first person that used Bitcoin that received the very first transaction from Satoshi. This guy's research, which he has all the proof points, all the evidence, there's various posts on Bitcoin Talk, there's blockchain, and there's emails that all back this up, that Hal Finney doesn't look like he came into Bitcoin until about block 48. So well after block 2. And Satoshi put a line of code into Bitcoin that means if there's only one node on the network, it won't create another block. It needs at least 2 nodes or 2 miners. So if it's just Satoshi, who else did it? And he finds a guy that could well be the person. I'm just scrolling down now to find the guy's name, and it is Dustin Trammell. And Dustin Trammell is also someone that is much less well known. I must admit, I hadn't even heard this guy's name. I'm ashamed to say I didn't know this guy's name. Clearly doesn't do much social media or go to many events. But hey, he's seemingly one of the very first people into Bitcoin other than Satoshi. So I'd imagine he's kind of beyond needing to go to events and probably values his privacy over anything else at this point. So they looked into him, and Dustin Trammell is also someone that has talked about on Bitcoin Talk and on the mailing list that he may also have been the first person to receive a block from Satoshi. Neither Hal or Dustin are sure. They just say, I think I was. I'm not sure. But it turns out when we do the digging into Dustin that he also was not the second person. He seems to have not done a transaction until block 78. So who was who did block 1 to 47 before Howell came in. And doing a load of analysis, looking at the blockchain, it actually looks like Satoshi sent the first transaction to himself. The first couple of blocks, actually, well, the first 47 blocks were sent to himself. And one of the big factors that it looks like that's why it's happening is that the first 47 blocks, Bitcoin, when essentially the blocks almost just stopped coming out of the network 8 times during that time. And even a very normal PC back then could have mined a block in an hour or two. And it was 24 hours plus with no blocks coming out, which looked bizarre. But then when you look at it, you go, and you also look at Satoshi's kind of posting activity and when he went away and when he comes back, the times that the blockchain was down in those early couple of weeks seems to be when Satoshi had his computer off. And he said he was doing things like updating things, rebuilding a computer, putting, and he also said that he couldn't receive incoming transactions. And the second miner mined through Tor, and Tor could not receive incoming transactions. So, cut a long story short, it essentially looks like Satoshi had 2 miners, probably 2 different machines, and he was using it to test it himself. And I always thought that. I always thought that, if you're, one of the greatest minds in engineering right now, and you've just finished Bitcoin and you've essentially put it live, you've tested this a million times in your testing environment. You shoved it to production now. It's live. You're not just going to test it works. Surely. There might have been something that went wrong, no matter how many times you test these things. And there's my previous career as a product guy, you can test a bit of software all day long on an environment that is exactly the same as production. And then you copy and paste it into production and it fucking reacts differently. Every single time, sometimes. And so surely you would just go, I'm just going to log in and just check this works. So when all these users come in from all over the place and they start to try and start mining blocks, it actually works. So it looks like that is what happened. And so really you could actually say it's a bit of a non-story in the fact that Hal was the first person to receive Bitcoin from Satoshi. It just wasn't block 2, it's block 48. And with that, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. We're out of stories. Hopefully we'll be back next week with not just 1 B. We won't have 4 Bs, but maybe we'll have 2 or 3. So until then, let's hope the price goes up, eh? But we'll be here every week. We've committed to be here all the way up until a new all-time high. And then all bets are off. I might take the opportunity to fuck off and do a Dustin Trammell and go off into the sunset. But until then, when we fucking here, until Bitcoin's at 250 a million, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. It might take a little bit longer than we thought, but we'll get there. Sweet. See you next week.